Let's continue with just now lesson for period 3 oxide. Period 3 oxide. What are period 3 oxide? We are referring to oxide, not element. So we have sodium oxide, we have magnesium oxide, we have aluminium oxide. After aluminium oxide, we have silicon. So it's silicon 4 oxide. After silicon is phosphorus, so it's phosphorus 5 oxide. Then we have sulfur trioxide, dichlorine heptaoxide. Okay. Period 3 oxide, you just want to know if they are basic oxide or if they are acidic oxide. Yesterday I taught you that when they dissolve in water, they will either form an alkaline solution or an acidic solution. So there's a concept where all metals are basic oxide and all non-metals are acidic oxide. So if you notice, all these two, since they are metal, they are basic oxide, which means when they dissolve in water, they produce an alkaline solution. So they give you a pH of more than 7. Whereas all these are non-metals. So since they are non-metals, they will give you acidic oxide, meaning they give you an acidic solution when they dissolve in water. So the pH value for acidic solution is anything less than 7. Now these two, when dissolved in water, it gives you pH 7. It's because it is measuring the pH of the water, meaning that these two cannot dissolve in the water. It cannot dissolve in the water. Like how oil cannot dissolve in water, there are some compounds that cannot dissolve in water. So we don't know if they are basic or they are acidic. And that is why you're going to learn another chemical reaction. This reaction is when the oxide reacting with water. It's reacting with water. So this is reaction A, or the first reaction. Now the second reaction you're learning is whether can they react with acid, period 3 oxide, whether can they react with acid or base or an alkaline solution. That is your second reaction. Okay, you have learned in your form 2, form 3 that acid plus an alkaline solution, or we call a basic solution. So now you already know what does basic means, right? Acid plus an alkaline solution or a basic solution will give you salt plus water. Okay, okay. So if you notice later, or if you have read the experiment 4.2, there will be 2 test tube, right? There will be 2 test tube. So one test tube is filled with sodium hydroxide. Why? Because sodium hydroxide is the alkaline solution. Excuse me. And another test tube filled with nitric acid. It's not chloric acid, not hydrochloric, or not sulfuric acid. You can only use nitric acid. Okay, nitric acid. Why you cannot use hydrochloric acid? Because it will form some precipitate, some solid, some of the element, some of the oxide. If you react with hydrochloric acid, it will form like a lump, a precipitate. Same goes for sulfuric acid. Then that's why you are not using that 2 acid, you are using nitric acid. About acid and alkaline, you will learn in the few chapters further down. In your school, you will learn later, so I'm not going to teach you about that. Just remember, you're using here nitric acid, and then you are going to take each of this oxide, you're going to take and place it inside here. You are going to see whether they are soluble or not. You're going to check their solubility. Solubility means they dissolve in it and then they react. They will dissolve and they react. If they can't dissolve, meaning they cannot react. Okay? So now the first one here, you try with the first one. Sodium oxide. The first one is sodium oxide. We know sodium oxide is basic. So when I take this basic and I add inside here, do you think there will be a reaction? No, definitely there wouldn't be a reaction, because basic and basic, how to react? Another name for an alkaline is basic, right? There's actually a difference between these two, but I'll teach you when we are learning acid and base, not now, okay? As of now, you understand both are nearly the same. Can basic and basic react? No, it's not the same react. It's the opposite react. Why? Can you see this? Acid react with alkaline, give you salt and water. So when you take this and try to dissolve here, no reaction. It does not react. It does not dissolve. That's your observation. But when you take this and dissolve inside here, it dissolves, producing a colorless solution. When this you take and you react with this is actually a basic. This is actually a acid. So basic plus acid, what will you get? You will get your salt and water. So you will get your sodium nitrate plus water. Okay, as I told you earlier, I am not going to balance the equation. You balance the equation because I want to continue. I don't want to waste time balancing equation. Is this a neutralization reaction? Yes. Can you understand now? Okay, let's repeat the experiment with magnesium oxide. We know that magnesium oxide is a basic solution. Again, if I take this and dissolve in sodium hydroxide, there is no reaction. It does not dissolve in sodium hydroxide. But if I take this and dissolve in nitric acid, yes, there is a reaction, because it's going to be a neutralization reaction. So your observation is magnesium oxide does not dissolve in sodium hydroxide solution. However, it dissolves in nitric acid to produce a colorless solution. So you think, what is the reaction? This plus this. What do you think a reaction will be? I know this is my basic. This is an acidic solution, so I must get salt plus water. So it's magnesium nitrate plus water. Always remember, a salt must have a positive ion and a negative ion. So if you notice, magnesium is the positive, negative is the nitrate ion. Okay, over here, positive, negative. If you don't know how to get a salt, it means it's a positive, negative ion. Okay, now the next one, this is important. The next one is aluminium oxide. Now, aluminium oxide is not basic nor acidic, but rather amphoteric. Did I spell correctly? Amphoteric. Oh, I spelled wrongly. Okay. It's an amphoteric oxide. What does an amphoteric oxide means? It means it can dissolve, it can react with both acid and alkaline. Acid and alkaline solution, meaning this is both basic oxide. This is both a basic oxide. This is also an acidic oxide. It's both. In the first reaction with water, we cannot know because it does not dissolve in water. But when we try to react it with acid and base, it dissolves. It dissolves on both. So meaning this is an amphoteric oxide. Please remember this term. So in the two test tube earlier, this is sodium hydroxide, nitric acid. Now if I take aluminium oxide and put it inside here, it will dissolve to form a colorless solution. If I take this and put it inside here, it also dissolves to form a colorless solution. So since it can react in both, meaning it's an amphoteric oxide. Reacts or dissolves in both acid and alkaline. It shows two properties. It shows a property of basic. It also shows a property of acidic oxide. So in period 3, the only element amphoteric oxide is aluminium oxide. Alright, it's a special child. So what do you think will the equation be? Now the equation here may be a bit confusing. Well, let me write first. If it reacts with nitric acid, what will you get? You will get aluminium nitrate. You get aluminium nitrate. You know why here 3, right? Because aluminium 3 plus and then plus water. The equation is not balanced. You balance the equation. Okay, this equation is simple. The equation to do with sodium hydroxide is a little confusing because it is going to form this. Can you see that there is actually two metal here? So it's going to form sodium, aluminium, if you notice, this time there is two metals. Okay, so how do I call this? This is known as sodium aluminate. Sodium aluminate. You have learned in your Form 2, I think chapter 7 or chapter 8 of your Cambridge, you have learned that ATE stands for 3 different elements, and one of the element is oxygen. So you call this as sodium aluminate. Now in certain reference book, you will see the equation as like this. Again, this equation is not balanced. You got to balance later by yourself. You will see something like this. Is this two the same? Yes, it is the same. If you notice here, there is no water here. There is no water here. Actually, what it means is this sodium aluminate is extremely soluble in water, that it usually forms a solution, and this solution is a hydrated sodium aluminate. Hydrated sodium aluminate. What it means is it's supposed to be like this, but since it's extremely soluble in water, it will dissolve in the water again to form hydrated. Hydrated means what? Got water, right? You are hydrated, that means you have drink a lot of water, so it's in a hydrated form. Now this and this is the same thing. So in the exam you give either one, it's correct. It's just that you have to balance the equation. I'm just explaining the difference because in reference book usually you see this. Okay, but we will also accept this, so it's fine, no problem. I repeat again, for aluminium oxide, it's an amphoteric oxide. You don't call it like this, you call it as amphoteric oxide. Why? Because it can dissolve in both acid and alkaline solution. So when it reacts with an acid, you get this. It's simple. But when you react with sodium hydroxide, there is two metal here. So you are going to form like this, plus water. Sodium aluminate. It's a salt. But the only difference is this salt is extremely soluble in water, that usually it's in this form. Okay, can you see the water come in front? Because it's always hydrated in like a solution form. You cannot get like a pure solid salt. You get it in a solution salt. Okay, so you can write either one of the equation. Okay, okay, next, silicon oxide. Silicon oxide is actually an acidic oxide. When you try to dissolve in water, it cannot dissolve in water, so we didn't know whether is it acidic or basic, but it's actually an acidic oxide. How do I know? In my reaction number 2, that is when I'm reacting with either acid or base, I realize that it dissolves in sodium hydroxide, so meaning it is reacting in sodium hydroxide. But when I try to dissolve in nitric acid, it cannot dissolve. So meaning, what does it means? It's an acidic oxide. Always remember, it's the opposite react. It's not the same react, it's the opposite react. So when this reacts with sodium hydroxide, you get what? What do you get? You get this, plus water. Sodium silicate. Okay, remember it has a metallic and non-metallic properties, so it's called sodium silicate. Next is after silicon is phosphorus, right? When it reacts with water, when it reacts with sodium hydroxide, it can react, because this one we know is an acidic oxide, so it will react with the opposite. But when I try to dissolve it inside here, cannot dissolve. So when I try to react with sodium hydroxide, what will I get? I will get sodium phosphate plus water. Okay, now the equation is very confusing. I know, you have to practice. You have to take your time, sit down, maybe in every day for a week. You just sit down, you practice again and again and again, then only you can do it. Even I also, sometimes I cannot, I will have to refer to the reference book. Obviously you cannot remember all equation, right? But what I want you to do is just understand the concept. When an acidic oxide plus with a base, you get a salt and water, or a basic oxide plus an acidic solution, you get a salt and water. So how do I write the salt? You know how to write water molecule, you just don't know how to write the salt molecule, because you haven't learned about the salt chapter. I think you will learn this year. Yeah, you will learn this year. So it takes some time. At the moment, you have no choice but to just memorize. Okay, can? Okay, then the last one is sulfur trioxide. With what will it react? Will it react with sodium hydroxide or with the nitric acid? It will react with sodium hydroxide. How do I know? Because I know this fluor is an acidic oxide, so it reacts with the opposite one, and it will form salt plus water. So even I have to refer the reference book. Okay, equations are not balanced. Okay, can you understand? So let's just conclude again. Your period 3 elements, I'm only talking about chemical reaction. Physical properties I already teach you already. Chemical reaction, it's whether it's showing whether is it a basic oxide, an acidic oxide, or an amphoteric oxide. So in period 3, we know metals, which is sodium and magnesium, their oxide, sodium oxide and magnesium oxide, are basic oxide. So it will react with acid. When it dissolves in water, it produces alkaline solution. Whereas here, all the remaining non-metals react with water, it produces an acidic solution. This one will react with sodium hydroxide to produce salt and water. The only amphoteric oxide in period 3 is aluminium oxide. It will react with both acid and water. But when I try to dissolve in water, I cannot dissolve it. Okay, so you learn two reactions. One is a reaction with water. So with water, you see whether you get an acidic solution or an alkaline solution. You check the pH. Another one, you react with sodium hydroxide or with nitric acid. Then you see which one it dissolves. Okay, Ken? Basic oxide will dissolve with nitric acid. Acidic oxide will dissolve in sodium hydroxide. It's the opposite because I want to form salt plus water. It's all it's all back to your basic concept. Okay, Ken? Now, in period 3, you have learned aluminium oxide is an amphoteric oxide, which means it can dissolve in both acid and base. You also need to know, sometimes in SPM paper 1 question, they will ask you which are other examples of amphoteric oxide. So you learn now lead 2 oxide. Lead 2 oxide, this is the formula. Lead 2 oxide is an amphoteric oxide. Another example is tin 2 oxide. Tin 2 oxide. Tin 2 oxide symbol is like this. Tin 2 oxide, not Si. Si is silicon. Sn is tin. Okay, don't get confused. This is silicon. I'm not talking about silicon. Tin oxide. Alright, Ken? So we are done with period 3 elements. I will post some lab report because in your textbook one it's not complete. Last week I forget to post for group 17. So I'll post group 17 lab report and period 3 lab report. So it's quite a lot. So I'm going to give you maybe 2 weeks to do. You just go and copy. I am giving you marks, actually I'm giving you the entire thing. You're just copying and you're just getting marks. So can you please do your homework in time? But I'm not going to drag you within 1 week because I know you got so many other subjects also to do. I will give you other assignments, like we study period 3 already, right? I give you the questions for period 3. That you must do it within 24 hours. The lab report, take your time. Probably I will only give the due date after 2 weeks time. Can? Okay?